They always say people change over time. And maybe that's true. But when the woman you love looks at you like a stranger and spits out the words, "You're not the man I married," you realize it's not just change. It's rejection dressed as truth. It was a Tuesday night around 9:40 p.m. I remember the time because I kept staring at the clock above the living room TV as if the hands moving forward could distract me from what was happening right in front of me. My wife, Claire, sat across from me on the couch, legs tucked under her, wine glass half full. I had just finished telling her about the promotion I'd been offered, something I thought she'd be proud of, something I thought she'd celebrate with me. Instead, she sighed, shook her head slightly, and said it, "You're not the man I married." I sat there frozen, trying to process the words. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, careful with my tone, not wanting to start a fight. She looked at me, but not the way a wife looks at her husband. More like she was staring through me. Detached. Cold. It means exactly what it sounds like. You've changed. You're boring now. Predictable. You used to be fun, spontaneous. Now all you care about is work and routines. Her voice had no venom in it, just indifference. And somehow, that was worse. Anger means someone still cares. Indifference means they've already left you in their mind. I wanted to argue, to remind her of all the times I had tried. The weekend trips I'd suggested that she brushed off. The dinners I planned that she scrolled through on her phone. The way I still reached for her hand at night even when she pulled away. But I didn't. Because deep down, I knew she wasn't talking about me changing. She was talking about her own discontent. I cleared my throat. So, you'd rather I was the guy who partied until 3 a.m.? The guy who couldn't pay bills on time? The guy who didn't think about the future? Her lips curled into a half smile, half sneer. At least that guy was exciting. That one stung. Not because she was wrong about me changing, I had. I became steadier, more disciplined, more focused. But I changed for us. For the marriage. For the home we built together. And now she was throwing it back like it was some curse I'd put on her life. I didn't argue further. I just nodded, stood up, and said I was going to bed. She stayed on the couch, sipping her wine, eyes glued to her phone like the conversation hadn't just shattered something in me. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling for hours. Her words kept replaying, "You're not the man I married." Maybe she meant them as some careless jab. Maybe she thought I'd brush it off. But to me, it was final. It was the moment I realized I'd been fighting for something that only I still valued. Because if the man I became, responsible, steady, loyal, wasn't enough for her, then nothing ever would be. The next morning, things felt eerily normal. She came into the kitchen in her robe, hair tied messily, phone in her hand. "Morning," she muttered, pouring herself coffee. No mention of what she'd said. No acknowledgement that she had cut me down the night before. I wanted to bring it up, to ask if she meant it, but I didn't. Instead, I watched her stir sugar into her coffee, humming faintly to herself as if nothing was wrong. And I realized, maybe for her, nothing was wrong. Maybe this was just how she saw me now, boring, predictable, unworthy of admiration. I kissed her cheek before I left for work. She flinched slightly, as if surprised, but didn't turn toward me. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't going to beg for her love anymore. I wasn't going to keep showing up like a man auditioning for the role of husband in a play she'd already stopped watching. That night, I began my plan. Quiet, careful, absolute. She wouldn't know it yet. She wouldn't see it coming. But when the time was right, she'd look around and realize she'd never see me again. The thing about endings is they rarely come with fireworks. Most of the time, they creep in quietly, like fog rolling across an empty street. That's how it felt for me. After Claire told me I wasn't the man she married, I didn't rage, didn't confront her. Instead, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. And once you stop trying to excuse someone's behavior, once you stop giving them the benefit of the doubt, it's like pulling a curtain back. Everything becomes clear. I noticed how often she stayed late at work now. How she laughed louder at her phone than she ever did at anything I said. How she poured herself a second glass of wine every night but never poured one for me. One Thursday evening, I came home from work early. Her car was in the driveway, but when I walked inside, the house was dark. I found her upstairs, sitting on the bed, earbuds in, smiling at her phone. When she saw me, she flinched like a kid caught sneaking candy. Then she quickly locked the screen and muttered, "Didn't expect you home so soon." I didn't ask questions. I just nodded, because by then I didn't need answers. I already knew what was happening. But here's the thing, I didn't care in the way most men would. I didn't storm out. I didn't demand to see her phone. I didn't cry or beg, because I had already left her in my heart. Every night after that, I made quiet moves. I started shifting money into a separate account. Nothing suspicious, just small withdrawals she wouldn't notice. I gathered important documents, scanned them, uploaded them to a cloud drive only I had access to. I checked the lease terms on our house, figured out the exit clauses. And while I planned, I played the role. I still made dinner some nights. Still asked about her day, even if she gave me one-word answers. Still carried the groceries in when she shopped. Because when a man decides to leave, the smartest thing he can do is let her think nothing's wrong. But inside, I was steady, calm, focused. Every small step was a brick in the path that led away from her. 2 weeks later, the mask slipped for her. We were out at a dinner with her friends. The kind of group where appearances mattered more than reality, expensive wine, fake laughter, shallow compliments. One of them asked me about my job, and I started explaining the new promotion, the added responsibilities, the projects I was excited about. Before I could finish, Claire cut in with a sharp laugh. "Oh, don't let him fool you. He makes it sound like he's running the company. He just pushes papers all day. Trust me, he's not as important as he thinks." The table chuckled. My chest tightened. I glanced at her and she smirked, swirling her wine like nothing was wrong. That was her game now, subtle digs, tiny cuts in public so she could laugh at my expense. But instead of reacting, I smiled politely, excused myself, and went to the restroom. And in that mirror, staring at my own reflection, I made another vow. That was the last dinner I'd ever attend by her side. The following weekend, I tested the waters. Saturday morning, I woke up early, grabbed a gym bag, and left without telling her. Normally, I would have left a note, sent a text, something. This time I didn't. When I came back 3 hours later, she was on the couch, arms crossed, fake casual. "Where were you?" she asked. "Gym," I said simply, walking past her to the kitchen. She frowned. "Since when do you go to the gym on Saturdays?" I shrugged. "Since today." And just like that, the shift began. She didn't know it, but I was already reclaiming myself piece by piece. I signed up for a fitness program, started cooking meals for myself instead of both of us. I reconnected with old friends I hadn't seen in years, meeting them for coffee after work. I even booked a weekend away under the excuse of a work seminar. In reality, it was me testing what life felt like without her around. And you know what? It felt good. Too good. Because when you step outside of a toxic bond, even for a little while, you realize how heavy it was. You realize how much of yourself you had been suppressing just to keep the peace. One night, about a month after her infamous line, "You're not the man I married," we sat in silence on the couch. She scrolled. I read. The only sound was the faint buzz of the refrigerator. "Out of nowhere," she said, "sometimes I wonder if we'd even be together if we met today." I looked at her slowly. She didn't look up from her phone, didn't even flinch at the weight of her own words. And right there, I knew. She wasn't wondering. She was telling me. I didn't argue. I didn't ask if she meant it. I just nodded, turned the page of my book, and let the silence do the talking. Because the man she thought she was cutting down, the boring, predictable husband, was already gone. And soon enough, I would be too. By the third month, I had built a double life. Not the kind where you sneak around with lies and secrets, but the kind where your soul starts living somewhere else long before your body leaves. To Claire, I was still there, still the man who shared her bed, paid the bills, played the part. But inside, I had checked out. I was no longer her audience, her safety net, or her silent punching bag. And I think she felt it. She started probing with questions, little jabs disguised as casual talk. Why are you spending so much time at the gym? Who keeps texting you so late? Since when do you hang out with Jason again? I thought you said he was a bad influence. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, she didn't notice where I was or what I was doing. Suddenly, when my attention wasn't orbiting around her, she wanted answers. But I gave her none. Just calm, clipped replies, working on myself. Old friends. Needed a change. And that frustrated her more than any argument ever could. The real breaking point came one Friday night. I came home later than usual. I expected her to be on the couch like always, scrolling through her phone. Instead, she was dressed up, makeup done, perfume heavy in the air. "Where are you going?" I asked, setting my keys down. She smirked without looking at me. "Out. Don't wait up." It was such a cliche it almost felt like a movie script. But I didn't stop her. Didn't demand to know where, with who. Didn't play the jealous husband. I just said, "Have fun." She blinked, caught off guard by my lack of reaction. Then she rolled her eyes and walked out. That night, I didn't sit around wondering where she was. I didn't text her, didn't check her location, didn't pace the floor. I cooked myself dinner, watched a documentary, and went to bed early. And when she stumbled in around 2:30 a.m., heels in her hand, giggling into her phone, she froze when she saw me sitting at the kitchen table, awake, calm, sipping tea. She bristled. "What are you doing up?" "Just couldn't sleep," I said, voice even. Her eyes darted to her phone, then back to me. She looked almost nervous, like she expected me to explode. When I didn't, she muttered something about being tired and vanished upstairs. I didn't follow, didn't ask, because at that point, I didn't need proof of betrayal. I already had enough truth. The next morning, I made a quiet decision. I pulled out a small suitcase from the closet, the kind meant for weekend trips. I started filling it, not everything, just the essentials. Shirts, jeans, socks, toothbrush, my laptop. Enough to walk away without hesitation when the time came. I placed the suitcase neatly under the bed, zipped and ready. And with that, my countdown began. Over the following days, Claire grew restless. She started poking more, picking fights over small things. "You didn't do the dishes. You never compliment me anymore. You're so distant lately." Each complaint felt hollow. Not because she was wrong, I was distant, but because she had created the very distance she was now suffocating in. One night, she finally cracked. We were sitting at the dining table, silent as usual, when she slammed her fork down. "Do you even love me anymore?" she demanded. I looked at her, really looked. And I realized something shocking. I didn't hate her. I didn't even resent her. I just didn't feel anything. "Does it matter?" I asked softly. Her face twisted, confusion and anger mixing into one. "Of course it matters. I'm your wife." I nodded slowly. Exactly. That was the first time I saw fear in her eyes. Not because she thought I might leave, but because she realized she'd already lost the one thing she never expected my attention. And then came the moment everything crystallized. It was a Sunday afternoon. She was in the shower, her phone buzzing on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't have cared. But this time, the name lit up the screen, Ethan. Not a coworker I knew. Not a family member. Just Ethan. With a heart emoji. The phone buzzed again. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you." I didn't touch the phone. Didn't scroll. Didn't snoop. I just stared at those words for a long, calm moment. Then I walked to the closet, pulled out my suitcase, and placed it on the bed. Because I didn't need to read another text. I didn't need a confrontation. I didn't need tears, explanations, or apologies. The truth had been sitting in my chest for months. Now it was carved into glass on her phone screen. And with that, the last piece of me that had been clinging to this marriage fell away. I zipped the suitcase, took one last look at the room we once shared, and whispered to myself, "Never again." I didn't slam doors. I didn't yell. I didn't leave a dramatic letter on the counter like in some cliché movie. I just left. The suitcase was already packed. My wallet, phone, and keys were in my pocket. Everything else, photos, furniture, shared memories, I didn't want them. They weren't mine anymore. When Claire came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her, Humming a song she probably learned from Ethan, I was already gone. By the time she noticed the suitcase missing, by the time she checked the closet, by the time her fake world cracked wide open, I was an hour down the highway, windows rolled down, breathing air that felt freer than anything I'd tasted in years. I didn't go far that first night. Just a small roadside motel, $49 cash, no questions asked. The kind of place with buzzing lights and a bed that creaks when you sit on it. But it was mine. Mine in a way our home hadn't been in years. I lay there staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to cars rush by on the interstate, and I felt it. Peace. Not happiness. Not yet. But peace. The kind that comes when you stop lying to yourself. For the first time in months, I didn't wonder when she'd come home. I didn't brace for the next sarcastic jab. I didn't feel invisible. I was just a man alone free. The text started the next morning. Claire, where are you? Claire, what the hell is this? Your suitcase is gone. Claire, if this is some kind of joke, it's not funny. I didn't answer. By noon, Claire, we need to talk. Please. Claire, don't do this. I didn't mean what I said the other night. Claire, you're not the man I married. I meant it as motivation, not an insult. You're twisting it. Funny how fast the story changes when control slips away. I turned the phone off. 3 days passed before I checked it again. Dozens of missed calls, long paragraphs, desperate apologies mixed with insults. One stood out, Claire, if you walk away from me, you'll regret it forever. But I didn't regret it. Not for a second. What surprised me wasn't her reaction, it was mine. I expected to feel guilt, maybe even shame. Instead, I felt relief. Like stepping out of a burning house and realizing you'd been choking on smoke for years without noticing. I got a small apartment 2 towns over. Sparse, quiet, no photos on the walls. Just space to breathe. I bought a mattress, a coffee maker, a single chair. I didn't need more. And every night, when I lay down in that empty room, I thought about her words, "You're not the man I married." She was right. I wasn't. Because the man she married would have begged. The man she married would have tried harder, bent further, sacrificed more just to hold on to her approval. But that man was gone. 2 weeks later, she found me. I was leaving the gym when she pulled up in her car, eyes red, hair messy, looking nothing like the confident woman who once dismissed me with smirks. She stepped out, trembling. "We need to talk." I stayed calm. There's nothing left to say. Tears filled her eyes. I messed up. I was lonely. I didn't mean half the things I said. I wanted you to fight for me. That made me laugh, bitter and quiet. You wanted me to fight for you while you were giving yourself to someone else? Her face went pale. She knew I'd seen the messages. Please, she whispered, reaching for my arm. We can fix this. You're my husband. I stepped back, shook my head. No, I used to be your husband, but you killed that version of me the moment you told me I wasn't the man you married. And you were right. I'm not him anymore. I'll never be him again. Her lips trembled. So that's it? You're just gone. I looked her dead in the eye. Calm. Certain. I was gone the moment you stopped seeing me. This, I gestured between us, is just the part where you finally notice. She broke down right there in the parking lot, sobbing into her hands. People stared. I didn't. I walked past her, got in my car, and drove away. And as I pulled onto the highway, I whispered the same words I had whispered to myself weeks earlier, the night she cut me down in our living room. Never again.